Salutations, fellow nerds and wise guys. Today is Christmas Eve and Libyan Independence Day. So I hope those of you who celebrate either or both have a wonderful time with friends and family. Make sure to stay safe. Today I want to address the very real concern by unions that their promises that were given to them won't be kept. This past CR that passed through the House seemed to be lacking some crucial legislation. Representatives chose to leave out funding that went to 9/11 first responders. And New York firefighters aren't all too pleased with this, as I'm sure you can all very well imagine. So if you enjoy news, history, or Americana in general, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. It would go a really long way to making sure that we can all get through this together. This past week, the UFOA FDNY, or the Uniformed Fire Officers Association, the New York firefighter chapter of the union, made public remarks about promises that hadn't yet been kept in the recent spending bills that were passed in the House and then went on to the Senate. They were asking for funding to the what is called the James Drogan 9/11 Health and Compensation Act after Republicans again refused to pass it in their continuing resolution. This has been a huge sticking point for a lot of Americans, and I'm almost positive some of you out there are familiar with the efforts by Jon Stewart and others to kind of get these kinds of pieces of legislation passed. Now that they've seen an opportunity to go after everything that seems to be good and decent in this world, like funding for treatment for kids with cancer, it appears as though the Republicans chose another less glaring, but still quite divisive topic: healthcare for 9/11 first responders. A litany of disorders and injuries came from the horrific events of that day. From acute injuries to long-lasting chronic conditions to different forms of cancer from inhalation of dust particles. Because of that, many advocates did what they could to try and levy the emotions of Congress to offer the care and treatment to those who rushed into harm's way in one of our darkest hours. Time and time again, lawmakers and their staffs have worked effortlessly to block these compensatory claims by those we call our nation's heroes. Initially in 2010, a bill called the James Zadroga 9/11 Health and Compensation Act was passed. However, there were 3 rounds of votes when it came to this, and each time it was voted down, it was done so along party lines, with the Republicans leading the charge against the legislation. This was eventually passed, but reauthorizations were also seen with resistance and had to be added to what are called omnibus bills. Again, the resistance heavily lied on the side of Republicans. Since then, folks like Democrat Kirsten Hillerbrand from New York and Chuck Schumer continued fighting for the legislation and eventually passed this legislation in 2023, which brought an amendment to the National Defense Authorization Act that was widely accepted with bipartisan support, where it was killed eventually by Republicans Rand Paul, Mike Lee, Tommy Tuberville, the guy who represents Alabama while not even living there, and Markwayne Mullins from Oklahoma. Apparently his parents couldn't decide on just one good name. Keep in mind, it's one word. Mark Wayne. Not Mark Wayne. Just flat out Mark Wayne. Just a BOGO on the baby names, that one. So what exactly happened this week? Well, the continuing resolution that Congress chose to force through was markedly light. After Ghost President Elon Musk got into Donald Trump's ear like Grima Wormtongue, some of the legislation they cut was also going to go to the people that we always try to claim every September that we're not supposed to ever forget. Which is, great. Forgetting things can be a real tricky accident. But this was no accident. This was deliberately keeping resources away from some of our finest citizens in order to afford the tax cuts that they're preparing for themselves. The Midas Touch, in their consistently brilliant coverage of all of this, also pointed out that the same union that is now pleading into microphones for Republicans to do the right thing chose against endorsing anyone in the election, not unlike Teamsters leader Sean O'Brien, who has been hitting the media blitz recently, calling Kamala Harris arrogant with fucker Carlson. I don't know his name. Yet he's also pleading with the people who demonstrably supports helping Amazon workers who are currently on strike. So now we have union leaders getting a taste of the consequences of their actions while their leaders are going around blasting the only presidential administration who ever actually stood alongside them on the picket lines and helped them achieve greater worker benefits without using the power of the executive office. I know a lot of folks are going to say they didn't endorse either candidate, and that's true. However, there is a lot more context there. Their polling stated that they approved overwhelmingly for Trump's election. And Sean O'Brien was giddy to speak at the RNC, or Republican National Convention. So, I mean, if you want to say he was being nonpartisan, fine. If you don't wish to take the context clues of a set of circumstances and align them with an analysis for your own judgment, good luck with life. How you've gotten this far is nothing short of shocking. The tough guy union leaders were more attracted to Trump's ignorant and blustery masculinity than Kamala Harris and her professional acumen and government experience at the top of one of the most successful presidencies of our lifetimes. Why were they so blinded by Trump's manliness? I won't speculate. I will say that the YMCA music is starting to make a lot more sense. Now we're seeing unions pleading to get the Republicans that they have bent the knee to in subservience to help find it in their hearts to codify some funding for them. Oddly enough, they didn't seem too worried about any of this money when they were trying to wage wedge issue warfare against their fellow Americans. American workers, they don't need money, they don't need benefits. What they need is to have the nice peace of mind knowing that they can laugh at people and their pee-pees and home of origin. I'm having an increasingly difficult time with this type of news because I was raised not to take joy in other people's suffering. I was raised not to make light of or remind folks that they were wrong and to refrain from being that guy who says, I told you so. And I'm doing everything that I can to try and maintain the inadvertent schadenfreude. But it is becoming more and more apparent to me that the people who empowered these folks don't recognize nor understand the importance of lifting everybody up in this world. And now they're starting to see the effects of that. And they haven't even observed the full power of what it is that they have ushered in. Leaders from the International Association of Firefighters ultimately chose against supporting any nominee. The Fraternal Order of Police chose to openly endorse Trump, who happens to be a convicted criminal. We had a saying back in the day about the prisoners running the prison, but now it just kind of seems a little too on the nose. And from what I've also seen is statements by the union chapter who is pleading with the Republicans for money right now, also making public statements about strongly supporting Donald Trump. Why are we always expected to sit back quietly and continue to allow these people to keep making the same mistakes and blaming everyone else for it, instead of facing the hard truth and demand that they look in the mirror and consider having a moment of clarity? So, if you're a part of MAGA and you're listening, I'm sorry. We told you so. We told you this was going to happen. We even tried to get you to see that he was filling seats with paid actors and not real union members, and you scoffed at the reporting. You chose against listening. You chose not to subscribe to what the entire world was trying to get you to understand. And we're here now because of you. You spent years saying some of the most horrendous shit to and about the people in your lives. And now you can sit back and take the medicine. You saw Tucker Carlson get on stage and literally demand a spanking from daddy, and you said, yes, please, I will take some of that. The milk is expensive and people are expressing themselves. I can no longer have any of this. I choose to vote for the guy who advertised that he will exploit us for every penny and shred of our own dignity because Jesus. There are a lot of our family and friends who are just lost in the woods right now, y'all, and they need help coming home. This Christmas season, I want us all to remember that there are truly people out there who regret their actions, and it isn't our responsibility to give them the business when it comes to all this. If they're truly open to growing and changing their minds, help them. Open the doors to let them join us in this patriotic resistance against moneyed interests who only wish to see us yell at our neighbor across the street while they haul all of our shit through the back door. We've got work to do. But if there are just folks who refuse to listen, don't feel bad about watching them go through the turmoil that they've welcomed in. I completely get that it is important to have empathy and an open hand, but there's no reason you shouldn't take light in the fact that a lot of shitty people may end up getting what they deserve. Just do what you can to help those who may have been taken for a ride. They're going to need all the help that they can get to get off of this train. The only way that we can do that is if we stay informed, we stay engaged, and we stay decent. Until next time, Merry Christmas and Happy Libyan Independence Day. Y'all come back now. You hear?